you have seen on the board, the lecture is hypothalamic lesions. So hypothalamus, as you are all aware, is a conglomeration of nuclei that are found just below or underneath the thalamus. That is why it is called hypothalamic nuclei. So it means hypothalamus is not a single structure, mark you. Hypothalamus is not a single structure, it's a combination of several or multiple nuclei. So hypothalamus is related to the third ventricle. Just as you can remember, while I was discussing the thalamus, I was discussing that the two thalami enclose the third ventricle, which is a space. You know, the ventricles, they contain CSF. So similarly, the hypothalamus, the two together, because you have one on the left side, one on the right side, since they are below the thalamus, the two together, they are also related to the third ventricle. So it's like hypothalamus is a sheet of group of nuclei that are lying below the thalamus. So these hypothalamic nuclei, they are also within the substance of the cerebral hemisphere. That means they are below the cerebral cortex. That is also their subcortical. So when you are asked about the subcortical structures, we make mention of the basal nuclei, mention thalamus, mention the hypothalamus, and other structures related to that. So the hypothalamus has several nuclei, about 10 to 11 group of nuclei. So the hypothalamus is divided into two sheets of nuclei. Medial sheet containing about 10 nuclei, and the lateral sheet containing only one large nucleus. So we have about 11 group of nuclei related to the hypothalamus. The medial sheet, as I told you, contains 10 nuclei, is divided into 4 groups. There's what we call pre-optic portion of the medial sheet of the hypothalamus. We have supra-optic part of the medial part of the hypothalamus. You have tuberal part of the medial part of the hypothalamus, and then we have mammillary part of the hypothalamus. The pre-optic portion contains only one nucleus, what you call pre-optic nucleus. This nucleus is responsible for our sexual drive and also the release of the gonadotropin releasing hormone, responsible for all this control of our secondary sexual characters and what have you. So in case this nucleus is affected, the sexual drive is also going to be affected. Are you clear? Good. We also have in this supraoptic region, we have about 4 nuclei. I said in the supraoptic region, we have 4 nuclei. The first one is what we call suprachiasmatic nucleus, SCN. This is optic chiasma. This is our optic nerve. So this suprachiasmatic nucleus is responsible for our sleep and wake cycle. You understand? So this sleep and wake cycle is like responsible for making you sleep in the night and making you awake in the daytime. Are you clear? So the other one is supraoptic nucleus. This supraoptic nucleus is responsible for the control of our water and electrolyte in our own body. That means something to do with thirst. You get it? Thirst. Like when you are feeling thirsty, you have to drink water. So this supraoptic nucleus is responsible for the regulation of our body electrolyte and water. You understand? Similarly, this anterior thalamic nucleus anterior hypothalamic nucleus is responsible for, regulation of our body temperature, so that our body temperature is not going to rise, especially during this hot weather. When the temperature is very hot in the environment, ideally our internal body temperature is also supposed to rise because our environmental temperature is high. But this anterior hypothalamic nucleus prevents the rise of our internal body temperature. So this anterior hypothalamic nucleus is anti-rise temperature, nucleus. So that means it is responsible in the regulation of our body temperature. That is this temperature regulation. Are you clear? Similarly, we have what we call paraventricular nucleus. This paraventricular nucleus is responsible for the release of oxytocin and corticotropin release hormone. So this corticotropin hormone and the oxytocin, they are, hormones. If you can remember, the oxytocin is responsible for the stimulation of the uterus during labor. When the woman is pregnant and the pregnancy reaches 9 months, it is this oxytocin that makes the uterus to contract. And also when the woman now delivers a baby, the breast, is engorged with breast milk. And so the oxytocin will also act on the muscles around the mammary gland to squeeze the breast milk out so that the baby will now suck the breast. So that means endocrine function, because these hormones, they are all part of the endocrine system. Are you clear? Because they don't have duct for the release of them. So we now seen this endocrine function through this paraventricular nucleus. In the tuberal portion of the hypothalamus of the medial side, we have what we call arcuate nucleus. This arcuate nucleus regulates virtually most of the hormones that are being released, produced and released by the pituitary gland. In the pituitary gland, you know that we have anterior part, we have posterior part. The anterior part has about 5 different cell types that produce, different kinds of hormones that regulate thyroid gland or regulate our ovaries or testicles in our own body. So this arcuate nucleus is the one that controls those cells in the pituitary gland, both in the anterior part and in the posterior part. So still this one, the arcuate nucleus is also responsible for this endocrine function. Please check my video for the hypothalamus. If you check the video for the hypothalamus, you will see all the functions, being stated about each and every nucleus here that I'm just mentioning, based on this and other things in the hypothalamic, video there. Similarly, we have ventromedial nucleus, still in the tuberal portion of the medial part of the hypothalamus. This ventromedial nucleus is responsible for the control of, our feeding behavior. That means when you eat, you feel satisfied. That is what we call satiety. That satiety is like when you eat food, you feel okay, and then you don't eat any longer. And it is this nucleus that is responsible for the release of hormone that controls your eating. When you eat, and then you feel satisfied, and you feel no longer eating. It is this hormone that controls, the eating behavior. So satiety is being regulated by this nucleus. Similarly, the dorsomedial nucleus, you understand? This dorsomedial nucleus is responsible for making you feel hungry when your stomach is empty. The dorsomedial nucleus is responsible for making you feel hungry. That is hunger. So here we have hunger and thirsty. I combine them together. So now the ventromedial nucleus as well as dorsomedial nucleus, apart from these 2 functions that I've said with regard to feeding, they are also responsible for the control of our anger and happiness. Remember, when you eat food, you feel happy. But when you are hungry, you are angry. You get it? A hungry man, they say, is an angry man. So the dorsal medial nucleus is responsible for the regulation of hunger and anger, while the ventral medial nucleus is responsible for the control of satisfaction and happiness. Are you clear? So now we've seen the functions of this nuclei here. And then here, the mammillary portion of this medial side of the hypothalamus, the mammillary nucleus. You get it, this one. The mammillary nucleus is also part of the limbic function of the hypothalamus, regulate the feeding behavior and the emotion associated with feeding. You understand, when somebody is eating now, there are some emotions that one will show while you are eating and you are feeling satisfied. So many things can happen while you are eating and so on and so forth. Similarly, the posterior hypothalamic nucleus, you understand, is responsible for the anti-fall in our temperature. When the temperature is very cold, especially during cold weather, you get it, the temperature is very low in the environment. Ideally, our internal body temperature is supposed to fall down. But because of this posterior hypothalamic nucleus, this nucleus is going to prevent the falling down of our internal body structure. Similar to this one, it prevents increase in the internal body temperature. This one prevents the falling down of our internal body temperature. So this one is also to do with our temperature. So if you are talking about this mammillary nucleus, expression of emotion of our feeding behavior, this is emotion. So reward and punishment is part of the functions of the hypothalamus. So once you have anything that can affect the hypothalamus, all these functions are going to be affected. The causes of hypothalamic lesion include tumor, that is cancer of the hypothalamus, trauma of the hypothalamus. That's one disease, what we call multiple sclerosis, that one can affect the hypothalamus. These are some, even vascular injuries or vascular diseases can also affect the hypothalamus, and lesions can occur in the hypothalamus. And so by the time one has hypothalamic lesion, there may be no sexual drive, there is no expression of hunger or thirst, endocrine functions like our own growth. Growth hormone is being released, from our pituitary gland and what have you. So the growth is going to be affected, either stunted growth or, overgrowth and what have you. Maybe no expression of emotions, problems with sleep and waking up, and then also lack of regulation of our body temperature. So the temperature is going to be, oscillating, low, high, something like that. So somebody will also have either lack of getting satisfied when he's eating. So you see somebody eating, somebody with hypothalamic lesion, if one of these nuclei is affected, if this nucleus is being stimulated, person will be having hunger all the time, and then he will be eating. And and this nucleus is going to be depressed. This one is going to be stimulated all the time, so that person will always feel hungry. So he's going to be obese because he's always hungry, he's always eating. But if this ventromedial nucleus is being affected, the person is always going to be feeling satisfied. After all, he has not eaten anything, because it is this nucleus that has been affected for making one feel satisfied. So the nucleus is affected, so at all time the person will feel satisfied. So the person will no longer be eating. And so the person will be emaciating, will be very lean. That is the difference between the two. So you can just, work out the symptoms or signs that will happen if any of these nuclei are affected. And so, in brief, these are what you people should know with regard to the hypothalamic lesions, causes, and the features. So let me break here, and then I will continue later on.